All right, what's going on, everybody? This is the Journey Continues vibe. We have it set up a little differently this way. We're doing an interview style because the reason why Emma, grateful she can come on here, an athlete as well, we're both in the same realm of information when it comes to sharing about how we could support other people in training and nutrition and where we've come from. And we both want to give a little insight into what we've both done over the years, or at least in the last year, that made such a big impact and progress on our physiques when it comes to training and when it comes to nutrition, because I know I've seen her change quite a bit over the last year. So it's always interesting to learn like what we're doing in order to do that, even after training. We've both been athletes for over 15 years at least.
Like 10 for me.
So at least for setting ourselves up and making changes at any point. So I'm going to let her talk about, but the first question that I want to ask her is regarding in the gym, what things do you feel like you've changed to make the most drastic improvements or the most progress in your physique over the last year? Is there anything that you specifically think about or worked on, or the way that you've trained that has actually given you the progress that you have that you can share with other people? So if people are doing the same thing over and over, or if they're looking for some type of change in their progress and they're not seeing it without going checking every little box there is, what are the things that you can share with people that you feel made the most results with your progress, at least that I've seen? And I think people will also be able to see it online, so we'll share that later. But what would you say those things are for you particularly, so other people watching can get some insight and information to help them?
Yeah. So for me, I would say if we're talking about just the past year, I would say that I've really just focused on like having more fun with my training, like kind of relaxing about it, but in a strategic, like intentional way. So basically, I used to be very uptight and everything about my training, but now I kind of just go in and I really do like working out and training. Like I really look forward to it. So I just go in there and I do what I want, but also, in a strategic way. So if I decide like I really want to work on my legs, then I'll train my legs and I'll do different movements to target different areas of my legs. But I'm not like I have to do, 4 sets of 15, you know what I'm saying? I do it, I push myself, sometimes I do like to train to failure as well. Um, and I go in there and I do, as best as I can, but I'm not rigid on any particular thing. And that takes like the stress and the kind of rigidity out of it as well. So yeah, so that's number one. I have fun and I just enjoy the process, because if you're not having fun, then you're less likely to like stick to a certain program. You're less likely to get in the gym and things like that. Like that's what makes me enjoy it and want to come back every single, well, not every day, but a lot, right? Second, I would say is like specifically like in my mind, like mind muscle connection, and really like focusing and thinking about that muscle that I want to work. I found for like I've probably been training for about 10 years. I started when I was probably about 15, 16. I'm 26 now. So I would really have a hard time like isolating my back and like feeling back movements. But now I have, within the last year, maybe even 2 years, I've really been able to like feel those movements and get sore the next day and like really really feel it. So thinking about the muscle, also squeezing, like I love to do drop sets, like just having fun with my training more and being a little more creative. I mean, I think you need to have some experience though under your belt before you can start to like know what works for you, start squeezing, start like isolating the muscle, knowing which muscles you're working, all of that. But like it's really fun once you kind of get your feet wet with the gym. So that's the second thing I would say. The third thing I would say is just I've actually taken unintentionally like more rest days, but I actually think that that's helped me, because I am able to like recover, mentally, physically, and I'm really like ready when I come back for my next, session. So like I used to probably work out like 5, 6 days a week. Past year, I've probably been working out like 3 to 4 times a week, if not less than that. Just the way that my schedule is, it's busy sometimes. I'm a teacher. I also go to school for my master's. So things are busy, but I still, I feel like it's important. Like sometimes people think like quantity over quality, but like or just quantity in general, but like it's really about like how hard you're going when you're actually there. So I think like I really put my head down and work like for the days that I'm there, take my rest days, and I don't feel bad about it, because with my in the past, I definitely would feel bad about rest days and stuff, but now I just kind of like let myself have the time I need.
Awesome. Okay. So to build on that, what would you say change as far as your focus in the gym? I know you were talking about different sets and everything, but I notice myself that you're really connected to what you're doing. I guess you mentioned the mind muscle connection.
Yep.
So, do you feel that anything's changed in regards to the time that you spend for yourself versus everybody else doing their own thing in the gym? Because I've noticed that even in my own training, I kind of get into my own world, where I'm training. And that made a big difference for me instead of focusing on what everybody else is doing, or if I did enough exercises, if I feel tired enough, like you said, you go to failure a little bit. If you can explain for you if failure has changed as far as like the point of failure, like what that means now versus before. Because again, making the changes that you've made, I feel that other people could benefit from understanding that there's different points of failure depending on what you're doing. And then also maybe what has changed as far as you following your own program and not trying to see and check what everybody else is doing. If you can add, like you said, looking around the gym and saying, oh, look at that. Let me add that today. Or, oh, that looks interesting. Let me do that. Instead of being able to get into that time, like you said, I think I talked to you before. You said something about you used to spend hours in the gym. Now you're more focused. So how do you do that? How do you create that hour for yourself? Do you have certain exercises that you execute? And then how do you stop yourself from seeing other people doing so many different things and wanting to like add that into your workout? Because a lot of people I think can be misled in seeing other people's programs or what other people are doing and trying to not just do it next time, but try to add that in. And then before you know it, they're doing like 20 exercises, and I could see that happening, myself included. People watch what I'm doing. They'll ask me, oh, what's that doing? Or how do you do that? And then they'll want me to show it to them. And then they'll end up adding that into their training program that day, which could be putting it over the edge.
Yeah.
So if you can touch on those couple things, is how you get into your own zone, if it's different than last time, and as far as the adding exercises or what you go in there like knowing that you want to do.
Yeah. So I come from like an eating disorder background. So I struggled with anorexia for many years. I've since recovered, and I'm very proud of that, and happy, and I feel great. But so I used to, go in the gym for like, let's say 3 hours, if not more than that, and be like, okay, I need to hit X, Y, and Z, like so many exercises. I need to do 5 reps. I need to do, let's say 15 reps. And if I didn't hit it, like let's say I was doing a certain exercise and I only got to 12, I would be like, oh no, I'm redoing that. So then I might add on another set. I would be doing, instead of 5 sets for everything, I'd be doing 6 sets, 6 sets in that exercise. I was just so like, I couldn't even enjoy my workout. You know what I'm saying? It was almost like, I got to check this. I got to check this. It was like literally like a roll, like, just like a jail in my mind. It was crazy. So, but now I go in there. I do not follow any specific like training program or anything like that, but I do go in there, and from all of my years of training and just eating disorder or not, after I recovered as well, I've had time to kind of figure out like what I like, what works for me, what works for my body, just what I enjoy doing. I also really think that, the compound movements, like those basic movements, like with social media, you get a lot of like little, different exercises that are like very creative and cool and different, but they're not necessarily the most beneficial or effective, or, they're just kind of like fluff versus those, deadlifts, bench, squats, things like that, hip thrusts, leg press, like those are more beneficial, I find overall. But I also, RDLs are a big one for me. I love to do those. Shoulder press, love that. I just find what like works for me and what I think is like the most bang for your buck, if you will. So I go in there and I do those. In terms of like sets and reps and things like that. It varies. I usually will do, like, if I'm doing shoulder press, for example, I'll do some warm up sets, at least a couple. And then I'll do my working set. So maybe 2 to 3, really depends how I'm feeling too. That's another thing. And that's what kind of makes it fun, is when you can have fun with it and you let go. Like with my eating disorder past, I know how it is to like be very rigid and controlled and like not be able to like let loose. But like now I'm able to let loose, relax. I almost look at the gym now when I go in there as like a playground versus like before I would go in there and like almost look at it as like basically like I was like going into like a testing center, like ready to take a test. Like I have to hit it like this. I need to get this question right. My question right would be, hitting this exercise X amount of reps for 5 sets, and that's it. And I have to be sore the next day. It was like a very stressful situation for me. But now it's like, I look at it as like, I'm here to have fun. I'm here to get a good workout. I'm here to enjoy myself. I'm here to be healthy. And I've seen, in my results within my body, my mental health, my everything, right? Like I've been able to see like doing this is very beneficial for me. Like it's not just play. It's also like really like getting me those results that I want. Um, so anyways, so basically when I train, I go in there, I do what I want, what feels good for me, what I'm really able to feel and isolate and like that have that mind muscle connection, like RDLs, like I go slow and controlled. I think about my muscles moving, I get in my zone. And when I've done, let's say 3 to 4 reps, 3 to 4 sets, like working sets usually, then I'm like, okay, great, on to the next one, and I just kind of do that also. Like we go to a pretty busy gym. So like, sometimes the exercise that I want isn't available. So I'll just, switch gears. But like before, that was not going to work for me. I had to do it like this exercise, then this exercise, like, you know what I'm saying? That creates a lot of anxiety as well and stress. And yeah, you just tense about that. In terms of like, you had asked like going to failure, right? So like before I would literally restart, like I said, if I would like restart and make myself do another set, if I felt like I didn't push hard enough, or let's say I didn't get that rep that I was aiming for. Now if I don't get that rep, that I'm aiming for, like it happens all the time with like shoulder press, i just I just brush it off. I'm like, it's okay, because I still pushed myself. Like when I go to failure, that's pushing myself, no matter if that was rep 2 or that was rep 10 or that was rep 20. You know what I'm saying? So and it feels good. Like that's when you feel like those endorphins, like, you really like get going, got some good music. So then after that, so after I really push myself, I just go on to another exercise, and I just keep going. And I feel like if you brush, I said the word brush it off, like if you brush it off enough times, like it just becomes your new normal. Like that's how I operate, that's how I train. If I don't get it, it's okay. And sometimes, yes, don't get me wrong, I will like not redo the set, but I'll try it again because I'm like, wait, I think I could have gotten that eighth rep. You know what I'm saying? So I'll do it, but I'm not like down on myself. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, what else? Yeah, I feel like that's pretty much the gist of it. Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome, because what you're talking about, to me, from what I see on the outside of somebody who's doing those things, I see you more confident from my perspective. I do see you enjoying it more. I also see you focused on what you're doing and not allowing other people to dictate what you're doing. That's something, from what you're telling me too. It's like, what you're set up to do. You're not locked into a certain position of things. If you want to change your mind to do different exercise, you'll do that. So I think that's important for other people to understand, because at least when I'm training too, I kind of shut everything else off. I know you've mentioned to me a couple times that you noticed you could actually see my eyes closed when I'm working out, which it is. I make sure the exercise I'm doing, but once I get the gist of doing the exercise, basically my eyes shut down. The sense of see, for me, I put that away in order to heighten other senses. And I know you talked about mind muscle connection, so that's how I've made as much progress as I have also. And it's also built me more confidence too, like it has you, because of being able to do that. I'm not aware, observing what other people are doing in that time frame. I'm not trying to impress anybody. All I'm trying to do is feel it better, get a better response with my muscles. And that's where it helps. The mind muscle connection to me goes a lot deeper, because of the years that I've been training in order to change my physique after training for 20 years in some way. If a lot of people are out there struggling to say, I've been doing this for so long, I'm not seeing any progress. Well, there's different ways to do the same thing. I know it sounds to most people like, well, if I'm doing a shoulder press, what's there a different way? Well, I found that there's different placements of your thumb in certain movements, in your hand, in your palm, where you're pushing from. The kinetics behind things is huge. And when I realized that most exercises, people see it as, let me hold the bar a certain way and let me do the exercise, instead of noticing that there's different forces that you can use, different ways to press things. And I think myself, I feel by that mind muscle connection, you become more aware of how things feel doing it for your body, like you were mentioning before. So that's where I feel it would really impact and help other people make drastic changes, I want to say, from what they're used to. Because when you implement it, not just one workout, but it becomes week, months after months, I would say that because I was training that way for so long, I just recently took 3 weeks out of the gym. In the past, 4 days was my max. But because of the way that I trained, the mind muscle connection, the time under tension, all that stuff, I'm grateful to be able to say that I didn't lose anything in 3 weeks. In fact, I think I felt, as far as the way my body looked, feeling by how I look, more refreshed looking. I wouldn't say healthier, but I would say that my body was able to recover and not lose anything because I was so used to working so many little fine motors, so many little muscles and fibers, that just doing my normal routine through the day, of training other people and setting up calls with other people and going from here and there, was keeping my muscles active to the point where it didn't atrophy much at all over 3 weeks. Yeah. So if somebody is also concerned about they're not in the gym, they're just going to deflate, or people who feel like they're going to lose everything they got, nutrition is huge. So we're going to get into that next. So that's my thing with training and where I've gotten. And I'm glad to help anybody at the gym if I can during my time there. I do like to prioritize my own workouts because obviously that's something we set aside for ourselves. Yeah. But I'm all about supporting and helping and empowering other people to learn some more stuff about their own body, because then they go down the whole of trying to find other things similar for themselves and realizing there's a whole new experience out there doing almost the same routine, just in a different way and in a different mindset. So that's my thing. So I think we both came to that realization, is that how we approach things and the confidence building in ourselves. I'm doing things a certain way instead of feeling forced or feeling like we had to do a certain thing, just enjoying it and getting the most out of it, and still working hard, still putting up the weights, still sacrificing, some feel good or feeling a little bit of good pain. That's part of the process to put yourself through, but still being able to enjoy that, from that. So
Yeah, I want to say something. So like I feel like when you were talking, I didn't really talk about how I don't get distracted by others in the gym, because I just feel like it's not like any of my business like what somebody else is doing, and it's not going to help me really. So even having the mentality when I walk in the gym, like I'm not like going to worry about what anybody else is doing, or like even look and like notice what anybody else is doing, because that's just going to distract me from my workout, you know what I'm saying? And also it's not this applies to a lot of things, but especially with working out, like it's not always like what you do, it's how you do it. So like for lat pull downs, I would do those for like years and I wouldn't really feel them. I wouldn't feel them super, super well. But now, like I don't know who it was, but somebody gave me a tip to like kind of like pull with your elbows. And that like changed a lot of things. Or like maybe it was even you were like, you have to like have your well, you can have your like almost think of like your hands as like hooks to pull down the weight. Was like, yeah. So but like see, that is like that's everything, because two people could be doing the same exercise from the outside look the same, but it's really like what you're doing and what you're thinking in your mind. Also, I like the tempo. Like I really play with tempo a lot. I also like drop sets. I also like to squeeze at the top, go slow on the bottom. I mean, there's tons of different things that you can do. But like all of that too. And yeah, I don't know. I just feel like the most like when you're working out, that's like a very personal thing. So I just feel like there's really no need to like, you know what I'm saying? Like think about what anybody else is doing. I mean, yeah, because like I like where I'm going. I like the journey, like the track I'm on. So it's like, you know what I'm saying? I mean, it's always helpful to like look to other people for advice and support, of course. But like that I'm going to more so do when I'm not during my workout, because during my workout I want to be like zoned in.
right, that makes perfect sense as far as not being looking, it's from a standpoint of not looking at everybody else while you're training to bring down your confidence to feel like, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing the right amount of sets? And what is that person doing? But you don't really know like how that's working for that person or what that person already did before that. Or maybe they're not making progress doing what you're doing and they changed it to try to make progress, or they're just experimenting with something and you really don't know if it's working for them or not. So again, that can send you down the path of not being confident in your own workout, feeling discouraged for no reason. So that can be there. But as far as the nutrition goes, so I know my past with sports that I did. So the nutrition that I learned was mainly because of bodybuilding. When I got into bodybuilding, I learned about nutrition in order to match what I'm doing in the gym, we'll say, to be able to give myself enough fuel or energy to be able to train, but not only just to train, but also to look a certain way. But primarily myself, the reason I'm bringing it up is because my goal back then and my intentions were a little different around food, because I thought about replenishing performance when I played soccer. But then when I'm in the gym training, it was more about doing the protein, doing the carbohydrates, and just to try to build muscle. However, I wouldn't say it was the same that you've gone through, but I would say I had my own, well, relationship. I like to say my relationship with food that is a lot different than now. And it took me a lot of trial and error and a lot of doing, because I mastered, I would say, nutrition early on. I learned a lot about nutrition on my own. I applied it to myself, but I also held myself back, I thought, at the time. And by that, I'm trying to give information to other people about the way that you view nutrition, how you're using nutrition shows in the outside, not only just for your health, but in the progress you make about how you see it. So, what I changed back then was how I was implementing nutrition, what I was intending to do when I saw food, what it was doing for me. So, it changed. So, the thing that I want to bring up for you to share is the changes that you've made in your physique. Also, it's not just in the gym, but if you can share information with people about how you view things, can change the way that you put certain food on your plate. Not just the quantity, but maybe the type of the food changes when you start viewing things differently. So people that are struggling with trying to identify like what their intention is, maybe to match their goal, they have to also understand that nutrition and food goes with it. So if you can share a little bit about maybe how your view with food changed and how the change that you made that you share has been able to support your physique and your progress.
Yep. So, as I had mentioned, I came from an eating disorder background, so like anorexia, primarily. So I was like restricting my food a lot. I would weigh my food for years, and basically my goal is to eat as little as possible. I weighed my food all the time. Had to be healthy and everything like that, low calorie, no sugar, like sucralose. Just there was a lot going on. I was very restrictive with my food. Um, and that created like just a mindset of basically rigidity and control, and I wasn't able to actually like enjoy the food and really think about what I was eating. Like sometimes I would eat things just because it was low calorie, or I'd be able to eat a lot of it. I was big on volume eating, and it was just kind of like I was eating it, but I was just eating it because it was something that I felt like would fill me up physically in my stomach. Versus now, that was years ago. I since recovered from my eating disorder, and I eat to be healthy. I still have my snacks and things like that, but I eat to be healthy, and I eat because I like food. I love food, and I eat, to fuel my training so I can do everything that I need to do. I'm a teacher, like I mentioned, so I need to be able to like be on my feet. I need to have energy. I obviously work out. I want to feel good. You know what I'm saying? I also never really looked at like if there was some sort of social gathering with food. I was very like, usually like I'm not eating that. You know what I'm saying? And now I can partake in, things that I want to eat at a social gathering or whatnot. When I don't weigh my food anymore, I just have a very, just more so, I don't want to say normal, but it's just kind of like back to when before eating disorder. I just kind of eat what I want. That's healthy. Obviously, I now, like I had mentioned, I used to think about, what what's the volume of this, like how much food can I eat for as little calories as possible. Now I don't think about that a lot. I used to not eat peanut butter a lot because I was like, oh my gosh, like that is so calorie dense, like no. But now I'll eat it because it's healthy fats, I enjoy the taste, it's a good, nice component to, a healthy meal, carbs, fats, protein, and I'll eat it if I want it. You know what I'm saying? I never like force myself to eat anything I don't want to eat. And I think that's important too, because then that manifests in my day to day, because I don't feel like I'm like controlled by something. You know what I'm saying? It was always myself controlling myself, but like now I'm like, what sounds good today? You know what I'm saying? It's also like, well, what do I have in my fridge? You know what I'm saying? Versus before, if I didn't have something that I really wanted, because it was low calorie or just because I thought it was going to be good for that day, restriction wise or calorie wise, believe me, I would go out to the store and I would get it. It didn't matter like, how inconvenient it was. I was just so like just so like crazy about it. But since my eating disorder, I've definitely gained weight, but I don't regret any of that. Like I'm very, happy with my weight. I don't even think about it, like some of this stuff, like I don't even think about it anymore, like I just look at food like food. And before I would literally look at it as like carbs, fats, protein, calories, grams. It was like this whole equation, and this calculated thing. And also a big thing, this will kind of go into mindset, but like my mindset around my meals and my food was very much, um you know like kind of like the less that I could eat or the less calories I can have, the better. And I shouldn't really be eating right now, but I need to some extent. It was kind of like, it was never like a good thing. There was always some guilt attached to it or like some negative emotion attached to it. Now it's, I need to eat. I'm a person. You know what I'm saying? And again, I think that makes everything way more enjoyable. It's obviously very similar to how I approach working out now. I do it because I like it. I do it because it's healthy for me. And I'm not afraid to like have something that's like very calorically dense, like I mentioned, whether it be something on the healthier side, like peanut butter, or something less healthy. I had worked with a nutritionist like years ago. Only for a few times. My mom like really wanted me to see a nutritionist because obviously I had, a lot of disordered thoughts around food. And one thing that she said to me during our first session, which is actually like always stuck with me, and I thought it's kind of interesting, is like at the time I thought that she was so silly for saying this, but like looking back, I'm like, you know what, that was actually really good advice and like very true. I wasn't at the time ready to like think about that when I was going through my eating disorder, but now I really get it. She said basically, when you look at food, don't look at it as good or bad. Look at it as like for example, I remember she gave the example of an apple pie. Like a lot of people would label that as bad, right? You shouldn't be eating that, you know at least somebody with an eating disorder may, right? It's junk food or whatever. But think about, there's apples in it, that's fruit, the vitamins, health, that's healthy. What else? Like what was made with how did they make the crust? Like everything like that. It's high calorie, yeah, but those calories are going to give you energy. Like just approaching it in a different way versus labeling food as good and bad. That's helped me as well. And I also find that as much as I used to restrict and over calculate and like try to hit a certain number of calories every day, like maximum, um i I don't do any of that anymore, and I pretty much effortlessly like maintain, because when you listen to your body and just kind of eat like how you need when you need, you end up, it kind of falls into place. You don't need to over control it, is what I found.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I mean, I can relate to a lot of that stuff myself. Even going through and learning nutrition too, they did talk about, not saying about bad or good, but learning about what's in it. So you brought up two things that I think are really important for people to be aware of. I would say understand, but everybody will see something or get something different from this. So I'll say be aware. So if we're so fixated on trying to calculate so many things or looking at one food and breaking it apart, I feel that we lose some of that natural intuition about what could I actually benefit from, what do I feel like I want different now. instead, because I feel when we're so focused on specific foods, maybe, and I remember you had brought up something about trying to get in the least amount of calories, but the most quantity, it looked like, of food, or the most volume of food. And I've seen that, and when I went to college, I would see a lot of runners. There were two that stood out in my mind, two female runners, long distance. They would always sit together and they would have their food together. And what I noticed is they were doing the same thing that you mentioned. They were trying to have the least amount of calories, most volume. And at the dining halls, it was the salads. So I feel that there's a way people can get sucked into literally their food, because you start hyper fixating on building something so much in volume that you're missing out on the nutrients that you're not getting. So you would think that you're trying to create so much volume, but you have so little nutrients. So that's why I'm saying that being aware, and this is what the shift was in me when it came to nutrition, was when I was an athlete, when I'm saying like I was in it only for performance, I was only for look and performance. Even maybe to win a soccer game, I just cared about hydrating. I just cared about drinking the carbs in order to perform. I wasn't caring about what kind of carbs they were. I wasn't caring about what nutrients it had in it. It didn't matter to me at the time. So growing up in fitness and nutrition, is just like you're saying, is the big change in my physique that just came as an outside from what I was doing, was all to do with me shifting from just not trying to get in certain amount of protein, certain amount of carbs from whatever it was. I tried to be healthy as well growing up, but I didn't care about what chemicals was in it. I didn't care about how much quantity it came from. For example, not to knock on certain places, but I won't mention names, but there are certain supermarkets that are larger, that has larger quantity of food that it sells. There are some healthy ways to do that, but also I was just looking for, how can I get leanest food, most quantity. I wasn't looking at the nutrient content of the food that I was ingesting. Nowadays we have like grass fed beef and we have different forms of red meat, but I didn't care at the time. I just wanted to eat the steak. I just wanted to eat the chicken. I didn't care the quality of the food at all. So now the difference is, for me, when I'm training, I'm also, with my nutrition, my intention is, how much nutrients is that food bringing to me? I'm not like you're saying. I kind of let go on calories. Sometimes I don't even weigh most of the time now. I say sometimes is because I still see the volume I'm eating. I'm still looking at how many portions I'm having technically, but I don't weigh the grams. I just look at something and try to see, does this give me enough nourishment? Is this enough nutrients for what I'm looking for? How could I add more nutrition to my food, benefiting me? So instead of just looking at, let me just get any protein in to call it protein, I'm looking at, what is that protein providing me? The fish, what does it contain? It's protein, yeah, but what does it contain for me? So if I am eating a couple meals a day, if I am eating, whether it's 6 meals, whether it's my fasting 2 meals, whether it was 1 meal a day, how can I make that meal count nutritionally, performance wise for me, but also giving me nutrients? Because I don't want to depend on taking every single multivitamin and mineral on the market. I want to try to get as much as I can from my food and let the other stuff be like my backup, my foundation to to build on, not just to fall back on. I think that's the confusion that people have. So for me, the changes I made, and some people are like, I want to see your meal plan, or I want to see what type of supplements you're taking. Well, it's no real secret. I just make sure that the nutrients I get from my food, the quality that I'm getting of my food, I'm able to utilize, that it helps me with my own physique. So instead of just trying to get any chicken or try to get any carbohydrate, I see what I'm doing and what my intention is behind it. So those are the things that I've done. I've tried not to become as rigid with the amount of carbs that I'm taking, because back when I was competing earlier on, I actually restricted myself more than I even knew, because I was trying to get progress by not really changing the amount of carbs I was eating. I was trying to do different cardio, more cardio, maybe change the type of protein, but I was like, no, I don't want to eat more carbs. But then I met a coach that was like, yeah, you got to double that. And I'm thinking like, all right, if I'm going to depend on somebody else taking the reins here, then I got to respect them and at least give it a chance. So that was the first time I gave it a chance for me. I actually doubled the amount of carbs. And I was like, oh man, this is going to be terrible. But sometimes you have to try different things and give your body a chance. Luckily with training, working out a certain way with cardio is you can burn fat, you can change your physique. So if you were to go in the wrong direction for yourself for like a couple of days or a week, you just stick to a normal routine, a normal schedule for yourself, and you don't have to overthink it. That's the same thing I was saying about the training. As long as if you're training really hard and training good for your physique, and you take a couple of days off, your body will thank you. It won't reject you, kind of thing. So that was the biggest thing that changed with me, is I started pushing more carbs in my diet. And a lot of people have different programs where they do no carbs, so everybody has their own way. But for me, like I said, I experimented with pushing a little bit more carbs in my program, but also what type of carbs those were was important to me. So that's what's changed the most. Is instead of just trying to eat any carbs to hit my macros, you can say, to hit how many carbs or protein I think that my body needs or requires, I started doing, where am I getting those carbs from? What type of carbs from? What nutrients does it have? So that I can say, okay, that looks like it's really going to help me, not just performance wise, but health. So that's the major change. So what would you say about that for yourself, as far as, I know you said you used to eat a certain way, but as far as the nutrients and stuff, did you start naturally to notice, oh wow, I incorporate a lot of different food I've never had, or I thought this was bad in the past, the way I was viewing something? Are there any foods that you can tell people that you incorporate regularly now, based on the progress that you've made? Just, I know everybody's different, but just to share a couple things maybe that you're like, oh no, I can't do this besides the peanut butter, to incorporate, because I know I work with clients that sometimes I got to cut out the nut butters because they can't control how much they're having. And I'd rather somebody not feel like they're sabotaging themselves and have a little bit more mindfulness. So I'll add different things that it's a little harder for them to do that. But what would you say for you? And then we'll finish up with this, is the things that you can tell people, oh, I was against this, but then I tried this, or it's been helping me. So maybe somebody gives some insight, somebody who might be avoiding certain things can experiment with things for themselves.
Yeah. So I feel like I used to punish myself a lot if I ate something that was like either high calorie, or like for a long time I wouldn't eat like donuts and ice cream, like those types of more sugary, desserty foods. So and if I did eat, so I was struggling with my eating disorder for quite a few years. So then once I just reached a point where I really couldn't do it anymore. Like my body was rejecting just not getting the nutrients, that I needed. I was just always volume eating. I was always worried about calories and not really nutrients at all. So then eventually I just feel like I reached a point where I was miserable because of the eating disorder. And then my body just was rejecting that I kept restricting myself. So I would eat basically not out of control, but I would just be like, you know what, that's enough. And I would eat, what I wanted, sugary things, whatever it would be, chips, and then I would feel bad about it. And I would like feel like I sabotage myself, feel like I need to punish myself. Now I obviously don't do that. I just keep going, and I don't even feel like I don't even get to the point where I'm like, I need to have this, because I just let myself have it whenever I want it. You know what I'm saying? But at the time, that was my kind of the cycle that I was going in. And through that, I just slowly but surely, I started to naturally, I naturally started to gain weight over time. And I found that I was actually good with the way that I looked. I liked the way that I looked, and I was probably thinking more clearly because my body was finally getting some nutrients. Because, even things like, donuts, or, there were other things that I would eat, even like protein bars for some reason were like off limits to me a lot. Those were giving me nutrients that I didn't have before, because I was always sticking to the same bland foods or the same diet foods. Um, and when I started to, incorporate those types of foods, I started to realize like I was getting more energy. That also could have been related to, it's all, it's all related, like I was also have a healthier weight for myself. So I was probably having more energy from that too. So then I, was operating in that sense where I was eating better. I was getting more nutrients, or at least a better variety of nutrients. And that just escalated up into the point where I was like, like almost like basically where I am now and where I've stayed for the past few years. Um, and let me see. So, I mean, so like I mentioned, donuts, things like that, like, those desserty foods, I incorporate those whenever I want now, basically. I mean, within reason, of course. Um, the nut butters, like we talked about, even certain fruits. So like pineapple, which is a little bit higher in calorie and carb, like I would avoid that a lot. But now I eat it whenever I want. Mango, like a lot of different things like that you may not think somebody with an eating disorder or wanting to be thin would avoid, but I really did avoid that. Also bananas, like a lot of stuff. Anything that was like calorie dense. Also like grass well, just actually any burger, any like meat, like ground beef, anything basically besides like chicken and like very lean meats like 96.4 ground beef, I would avoid those. I don't avoid those anymore. And I find that that fat, like I would avoid fat a lot because it's more calorically dense than like it's more calorically dense than carbs and protein. So of course I would try to be on a lower fat diet. But now I eat a good amount of fat, and I find that it's more satiating as well, which we already know from about fat, about that macronutrient. But I find that like I actually feel the effects of that. Also, I used to have a really like high protein diet as well, because I would do like a lot of the protein powders and things like that, probably way too much of it. And like I was overdoing that. And now I really don't feel the need to eat like that anymore. Like there's nothing wrong with protein powders. I just personally don't really I'm in a phase where I'm not really into it. Um, but I find that like that's kind of left me room for other ways to get my protein, if you will. Um, yeah. And in my physique, obviously I am a lot healthier, like internally, but I'm also healthier on the outside. Like I look healthier. Like before, I was very you could just tell that I wasn't like healthy. I was way too thin. Even at my lowest points, like my hair was very brittle, like my eyes were like even a little bit yellow some days. Like at the worst part of my eating disorder. So I just feel like it comes out on the outside, as well, like how you're taking care of yourself. And also I'm just like happier. Like I think you mentioned like a little while ago, like you noticed like a shift in me. Like I'm just happier because I mean you didn't know me like during my eating disorder, but like I just feel like progressively throughout my life, like I get happier and happier and I like find what works for me and I get more confident in myself. I I just yeah, I just kind of lock into what I like to do, and I don't feel bad about it. That was another thing, like I mentioned, like I would feel very guilty, and like that overcomes like your energy. You know what I'm saying? When you're feeling guilty and you just consume with this stuff. Now I can kind of like just be free flowing about it. Um, yeah, and like I know that you mentioned before, like with the meat, like you didn't really care where it was coming from, you just wanted a certain thing. Yeah, exactly, same thing. Like I didn't care where something was coming from, I just wanted it to be a certain calorie. But now I like when I go grocery shopping, I will like get, if I mean I'm on a budget, but I will try to like get the more, sometimes pricier, but the more health conscious things like the grass fed stuff, but at the same time I think it's important to like acknowledge that like you can't always do it and that's okay. You know what I'm saying? Because you also don't want to be like, okay, I was this way before and I was not caring about, I just was caring about calories, but now I care about health and it has to be grass fed. It has to be, because then you're kind of enveloping yourself in another type of disorder. You know what I'm saying? You're being rigid again, just in a different way, which can also be problematic because too much of anything is usually a bad thing. So yeah, so I would say I'm just a lot more relaxed. Like who thought like being relaxed would be better? But yeah. Yeah.
Well, I think it's what I like to say is everything is connected. So a big portion of what I like to share with other people, as you know, is the fitness, the nutrition, internalness, and the mindfulness. It's all connected. And the information that we share with ourselves, whether it's training information, whether it's nutrition information, all those things work kind of like full circle, where when you're a little bit more present, where you're a little bit more mindful, meaning just aware of your decisions you're making, sometimes you choose different nutrition items. Simultaneously, when you're choosing nutrient dense foods or you're choosing things that are healthier for you, that you become more vibrant, or start working on your health based on what you're eating, it opens up your brain to be a little bit more cognitive, more functioning a little differently. A lot of times hormones, as we know, are linked to how we're eating, maybe if we're malnourished, hormones could suffer in different ways. So that could also change our mood and our emotions and everything. So the gym, nutrition, all connected to how we think sometimes and what we choose in our lives. So that's why I wanted to share a lot of things we did with the nutrition aspect of how we're viewing things and how we might perceive things differently to make the progress that we're making, to give everybody else an insight into, we've gone through certain paths, we've changed certain things about ourselves, but based on where we saw ourselves, not that we're trying to compare our past to now when it comes to, like you were mentioning, nutrition things, but understand that the person we were before, be in the past, that we can show up differently, and we don't have to make the exact same choices, but we could also have like what our intention now, and we're making these choices from our new intention. So it's nothing to do with our past selves. It has to do with the way we're feeling, how we feel that we'll be at our best, and in order to perform the things that we like to do, whether it's fitness related, whether it's other activities. So I think that's good. So one thing I do want to let everybody know, that if they do want to look more into any different eating disorder items, they could seek professional help with certain things, and to talk to people about it, consult, a doctor or something, if you feel that you have different thoughts and things. And I do want to share that my background working with different people, with nutrition and fitness and mindfulness, all aspects that could be empowering for people going through anything, any process for that. But I want to share that you can reach me on Instagram under my name, Adam Strachman. And you could also ask about different services that I can program into my calendar to see how I can show up for anybody. And then also, I want to turn the mic over so you can share a little bit about how people might be able to reach you if they have questions about things, anything that we discussed here today, so people can reach you and how they can do that.
Sure. So my Instagram is Emma Pearl. So it's just EMMAPEARLL. And then I have a YouTube channel that I go into my eating disorder journey and things that have basically helped me recover. And that is me, myself, and Emma. You could leave me a comment or something like that there as well. Also Instagram, I'm on that probably too much. So those are probably the best ways to reach me.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate everyone tuning in. The Journey Continues vibe, and we're out.